Today I'm here with Denise Gay, who writes under the name DM Gay. Denise is an award winning former journalist and the author of the hilarious and ghoulish 24/7 Demon Mart series. She's also a hobby urban farmer and a retired roller derby player. Welcome, Denise.
Hello, Viggy. It's always nice to see you.
Hey. Well, I want to start at the beginning. So, how did you first get into writing?
Oh boy. I was a journalist, so I don't know if you remember the Superman movies from like the
Mhm.
1980s, like Lois Lane, and I was like watching those when I was a kid, and I was like, oh my god, like being a journalist looks like so glamorous. So I think I'd like totally want to do that. So I went to school for journalism, graduated from journalism school. I worked for magazines and for newspapers and for wire services through the years. Lots and lots of writing on deadlines. So that's pretty much how it started. Like, I don't have like an origin story of like me, writing my entire life, like fiction and having some great American novel, like ready to go when I was a little kid. Like, that was never me. Like, it was always like, official things like journalism and deadlines and, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's how I started, really. Yeah. And
Mhm.
eventually it turned into completely ridiculous horror comedy. So,
Well, how did you make that transition from journalist to horror author, and why horror?
well, um, it is not a happy tale, but I mean, it is in retrospect, but it wasn't at the time. But when I was younger, way too young for this to happen, out of nowhere, I got a terminal cancer diagnosis for kidney cancer. And they were like, sorry, honey, you've got your stage 4. There's nothing we can do for you. We've got like 6 months to live. And I was like, oh, okay. So that pretty much took journalism out of the picture because I was freelancing for newspapers and wires at the time. And I don't know if you know much about journalism, but it's
Mhm.
constant deadlines. So, like, at that point, I had like 11 deadlines a week where the writing had to be done. And that's in addition to like interviews and like scheduling and research and sometimes going down to the federal court to go sit in on trial. So, I mean, it's a very like, rigid and inflexible kind of job. So, once the cancer came, I was too sick to do anything. So I went from like just like walking around like normal person to like four weeks later, I couldn't get off the sofa. So that pretty much killed my journalism career. I had to give up all of my stuff. And then at one point, they decided that okay, well, it's 6 months in, like this it's bad. Like, things were bad.
Mm.
And my oncologist, I was in the hospital, and he's like, there's this new thing. I just want you to try it. You've got nothing to lose. He's like, you're young. You're way too young for this to happen. Can't hurt, because otherwise it's just hospice and you're gone. And I was like, you know what? Okay, let's try it. And it was this immunotherapy that had just been approved. Um, and within 4 weeks, like half my tumors were gone. And like, yeah. So basically, I got what's called a complete response. So the immunotherapy took away all of the tumors, and now I'm, I have no visible cancer, and I've been living basically like a normal life,
That's amazing.
in remission since 2020. So yeah, it was like literally a miracle. Um, So yeah, I mean, it's not a happy story, but while I was like going through the therapy, and once I finally was like well enough to like sit up and actually write again or do anything again or think about not just surviving, I was like, I'm just going to write a couple of silly fiction books that I have like in my head, just because then if I die, like my family has a piece of something that sounds like me and my personality, which I love journalism. There were a lot of things about it that I loved and that were very important to me, but those were never really that wasn't really my
Mhm.
personality or who I am. Like, that was me like wearing a suit and dressing up and being very serious and trying to suppress the part of me that is very silly, which is most of me. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write a couple of silly books. And then when I die, at least they'll be there, and my mom and my friends and whatever can read it and they can remember me. So that's how it started. And then for some reason, those stories just kind of took off. So I've been really lucky. And then I did not have to go back to journalism um, when I was well enough to. So that's where we are.
Wow.
Probably not the story you were expecting. So
Well, that's incredible, and I'm so happy that you made, basically a full remission.
yeah, me too.
That's
Me
that's
too.
incredible and so awesome. And so now you went from 1 book to how many books are in the series now? Are there 9? Something like that?
Um, I have to look around. We're on book 6 in the main series story
Mhm.
arc, but there are two um two novellas that are fat, and then like four or five like side stories that are like shorts about Kevin, the cockroach manager.
I love
So
Kevin.
so it's kind of turned into a universe of
So
things.
awesome.
So yeah.
So why horror comedy? Because I think that is a very interesting niche. Because I mean, there's so many subgenres of horror. So how do you kind of balance the horror and the humor in one narrative?
Well, the answer to why horror comedy is because every time I try to write something fiction that's not funny, it turns out funny anyway. So I don't know that I can not write horror comedy. And then, I've been a horror fan my entire life, like, because I have a horror mom. She's a very mild mannered retired Catholic school teacher with the sweatshirt, like with the snowmen on it and like the
Mhm.
little Midwest hairdo. So you would never guess that like her favorite movie is like Motel Hell. But, I grew up with the mom who was like watching all these campy, like B horror movies, and I loved it and she loved it. So that was the source material that I was fed. Like I do love regular horror, particularly supernatural horror. But um, I think that um, I love the campy stuff, and I love the movies that were so bad they were fantastic because they were so bad. And I love like the funny stuff like a lot more, and that just happens to fit really well with like my natural writing voice. So it just comes out that way. Like I've tried to write serious, and it just doesn't work. So,
You gotta go
so
with your voice. I mean, I've tried to write other genres that aren't horror, and they just don't feel like me
mm-mm.
at all.
I
And I think
mean,
people can tell. People are like, "This isn't working, but I can't put my finger on it." And then you write like you want to write, and boom,
mm,
sparkly. There it goes.
people can tell when you're faking. I have this conversation a lot with writer friends that are like, because this is such a hard business, and they just want to get their foot in the door. So they look at what's selling, and they're like, I'll just write whatever that genre is that's selling. And I'm like, well, do you actually like that genre? Is that actually who you are as a person? Is that your fandom? And they're like, no, but money. And I'm like, the fans are going to be able to tell if your heart
Totally.
isn't in it. Like I
Mhm.
really think aligning who you are and what your interest in fandom is with your writing is part of the key to being successful. So even if it's not a genre that people say is hot or is selling, because people will, you know but that's I feel like I'm digressing on that, so I have a lot of
No, that's a
opinions about
really
that.
good point though, because I
So
have heard a lot of people say I feel like less so in the horror genre, but in other genres, people are like, "Oh, you wanna be a writer? Research what is selling and then write to market." Like, I just don't
I
think I
hate
could
that.
do that. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we could talk about right to market, but for me, right to market means okay, once you have found who you are as a person and
Mhm.
what speaks to you and what you can build a career in and be happy writing over and over again, right to market is then looking at the other people that are doing that and figuring out what are the tropes, what are the titles, what are the covers, what do they look like working inside the market you've already chosen that fits your opinion, your like
Mhm.
personality, rather than just like going on Amazon or to Barnes and Noble and figuring out what's number one in the store.
Mhm.
So my philosophy of right to market is a little different than the advice they're preaching, because
Yeah.
ultimately, like, why do this job if you're not going to be happy? Like if you're
Exactly.
just going to write something you don't care about, that like just for money, it's like there's so many other easier ways to make money, you
It's
know?
true, yeah.
Yeah,
But
like
writing a
write
book
what
is not easy.
yeah, it's not a dream job if you're like faking it and you're not like
Mm.
writing what makes you happy. So, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, what made you think of this 24/7 Demon Mart series? How did that first pop into your head?
Well, I worked the graveyard shift at a convenience store in Portland, Oregon, um,
Mm.
alone as a
Oh.
lady when
Oh.
I was young.
Hmm.
Um, So, yeah, I guess that was brewing in the back of my head, and actually the store in the series, like the layout of the store and the layout of where everything is in the store in the aisles is the store that I worked in. So, I literally can close my eyes and I'm standing behind the counter again at the convenience store in Portland. So, maybe I was like being a little bit lazy because I was like the setting is already in my head and I haven't memorized. And then it's like when you've worked graveyard shift alone as a lady, it's the humans are almost weirder than any monster that I could come up with. So it was just a monster silly way to turn like something I'd already done in my real life into a story. So that was also part of the something to remember me by thing. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, I loved the setting, and I especially like it when if you have it so clear in your head, then it's easy for me to have it clear in my head, which
Hmm.
is always fun for me as a reader because when I was reading this book, like I'm there in the convenience store, which was so much fun. It's because it's a fun escape. You know what I mean? Like I
Hmm.
get to read horror, but I get to also laugh out loud, which for me is a double whammy.
Mhm. I do love, like, um, fantasy things that are set in real life settings, particularly, like, retail, like like, I'm a sucker for any, like, retail or, like, terrible job setting for fantasy, workplace fantasy, horror, comedy, I guess.
Mhm.
I love that stuff, so, I don't know. It's like a place that anybody could walk into, which I think is part of the appeal, and I do have a lot of readers that are like, "Oh, I've worked retail, and, I can relate, like, you nailed all these things," and I'm like, "Well, thank you so much." It's like, you know
It's
yeah.
always fun when you can put yourself in the story in that way and be like, "That resonates with my experience."
Yeah, yeah. I've had a lot of bad jobs, maybe I'll write a series for all of them. So,
Mm.
we'll see, we'll see.
I have definitely used my past work experience in my books,
Mhm,
sometimes not always in a flattering light.
mhm, yeah.
Well, what's your writing process like? So are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Love editing? Hate editing?
Um, I am a pantser, which is
Mhm.
a pain in my ass, and I've tried to change it. Like I've tried to be like, oh, because you see the planners, the people that can plot stuff out and they write an outline and they can like write a book a month. And I'm like, oh my God, my career would be amazing if I could do that. But I cannot do that. I have tried. Um, there is a point to this, but I have tried all of the productivity hacks, all of the how to like outline your story and all of that. And at the end of it, all of that slowed me down. So me trying to bend my brain into the formula of the writing advice out there that helps you write faster actually made me write slower. So for all you pantsers out there, I would say embrace the way that your brain works and just let it fly because you can't just like change your wiring in order to to write books faster. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, I am a pantser. Um, so that means that I kind of have like one or two points in the story that I know are going to happen. Usually, like towards the end, like the finale, like I kind of know what that's going to be. So I'm writing towards that, but there's a lot of meandering in that writing, and usually and of course that means I have to revise a lot. But revision really is where the magic happens for me. So like, I do a draft of a story and it's like just total slop. Like, it's a vomit draft where I'm just trying to figure out the story for myself. Like, I'm telling it to myself. And then I have to like revise and I probably rewrite and revise and cut and rewrite like 3 or 4 times. But honestly, like the funny stuff like doesn't really show up until like the fourth or final couple of passes and I think it's because like the pressure is off of myself and it's like once the pressure is off and I have the skeleton of the story then I can add the funnier bits in and like tweak it to make it like funnier and I think it's just the pressure. So it's
Mhm.
like I can't be funny under pressure. So yeah, I mean, this is all nuts, but I guess my solid advice for any writers out there is like you just have to do it the way that you do it, you know,
Mhm.
and don't listen to anybody that says like real writers dot 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 because that's crap. We're all real writers.
Mhm.
We all just need to be the best version of whatever works for us as far as process. So, but yeah.
I 100% agree with that. That resonates with me absolutely because I started off as a pantser
Hmm.
and I found that that book didn't need as much revision as the books where I was like, "Oh, I need to write faster. I need to write more efficiently. Let me plot this out." And when I did that, the books weren't as good. They weren't as fun to write at all,
Hmm.
and they required way more editing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
some of
you
them I
took
just
the
like
fun out of it for
yeah,
yourself. And that's what we
all the fun was
shouldn't be
gone.
doing. We have to
Exactly.
keep the fun in for ourselves because that's where the magic happens, I think. So,
Mhm.
I mean, there is one productivity thing that I do like, and it's a book called like 2K to 10K. I think Rachel
Writing that
Aaron is
down.
maybe her name, but it's not about like turning yourself into a plotter if you're a pantser. It's about like, okay, so look at your processes, like where you write, what time of day you write, and just do some experiments. Like maybe try writing at a different time of day, maybe change location, like out of your house or out of other things, like, and then like take notes about where you're most productive. So it's more about like examining things you assume are true about your process and testing those to make sure if they're really true and then seeing if you can maybe like boost your word count like just by that like change a venue change a time of day but it's not about like oh you're not a real writer unless you write an outline which by the way is
Mhm.
boring and then why would I want to write the story if I know how it ends so anyway
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's exactly how I felt, and so with my past couple of books, I did plot them, they needed a ton of revision, and now with the one I'm writing, completely pantsed. It's like you, I
Mhm.
have a couple of ideas about where it's going, but it has
Mhm.
taken a lot of interesting turns that wouldn't have happened if I had to think, at the very beginning, what's gonna happen every single chapter. It just wasn't as fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the thing is like a lot of our readers, they think we know what we're doing. Which I'm like, I'm flattered that you think that I know what I'm doing, but I'm like, how many books into the series? And I'm like, I'm learning how to write a series because this
Mhm.
is my first series. Like, I don't know. Like, I've made a lot of mistakes, you know. I'm also hopefully becoming a better writer with every single book. And I'm also learning more about myself and like how, you know, how my creativity works and what helps me get things done and what doesn't. And, you know, they're just kind of along for the ride, whether they know it or not. So, but I mean, that's the goal. We should always be trying to get better and, you
Mm.
know, be happier.
Yeah, that's always good. It's like the goal
Yeah,
of life.
yeah. It is, and in writing, so but yeah.
Well, I know this will be a difficult question, but which of your books is your favorite and why?
Critters from the Poo Lagoon is my favorite, and ironically, it's the one that people pass over. I don't know if I just, like, messed up the cover or not, but, it's, like, the summer standalone story in the universe where, like, the Demon Mark gang, they go to a party for the, Charity Ladies Auxiliary that Lloyd's mom is part of, so they have to hang out with the mean socialite, Caroline Ford Vanderbilt, and then, some sea monsters crash the party, and Lloyd is trying to, like, keep the monsters separate from the ladies, and of course it all goes crazy, but I'm like, for some reason that one was close to my heart, and I think it's because like I'm a sea monster girly like
Mhm.
myself. Like I like the creature from the Black Lagoon, Swamp Thing, anything like swampy and damp, like yeah. Yeah. Like that's my jam. So I was like, it was my love story to all of my watery sea creature things. So I was like, you know,
Awesome.
I think when people try it, they like it, but, you know, it gets passed over because it's kinda like the second story in a secondary series that's
Mhm.
related. So that's not what they're looking at, like, on Amazon or the bookstores, you know, but it's my favorite. I mean, I have
I
a
love that one just based on the title alone, I'm
I
in.
know, I know, I get a lot of, side eye from my audiobook publishers about that one where they're like, "That's the Poo Lagoon chick." Jeez. You know, it's like, yeah. I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I am the Poo Lagoon chick," but,
You're building a reputation.
you're welcome. Yeah. But yeah, I have Trailer Park Mermaids. It's I mean, it's just very me. So,
I
yeah.
love it. I do.
And there's a recipe in it. So, yeah.
Ah, do all of your books have recipes?
No, no, just the first one because, you know, Lloyd's mom cooks him like cheesy
Mhm.
potatoes and he
Mhm.
like can't quit his job out of
Mhm.
guilt because the mom was so excited that she made him the special dinner. So, it's actually my mom's cheesy potato recipes cuz, you know, we're in the Midwest and that's like high cuisine right there, cheesy potatoes. So,
Totally.
I put that in the book 1, I think. And then
Mm.
this is only Critters from the Poo Lagoon has another recipe and it's because Lloyd's tacky Aunt Linda makes it makes a really strong drink that figures into
Ooh,
the plot like really strong. So I had to include that because I was like, well, I mean, she's in the story making the drink. It seemed like it
yeah.
made sense, right? So
Why
anyway,
not?
but it's very summery. So yeah.
Yes. That's a good summer read. I'm gonna add that to my list. Well, why do you think people gravitate towards horror or just more specifically, humorous horror?
um, that is very interesting because I feel like, you know, when I um well, let me say why people do it. A lot of my readers don't realize they're reading horror.
Hmm.
So, there's a lot of discussion about this in the writers community, which we can circle back to. But horror comedy is kind of like an on ramp to horror, I think, for people that might not realize that they like monster stories or like horror, because a lot of times I don't know if you've seen this meme, but I will send it to you after. But there's a meme, and it's like normies, which is like the normal people, and
Mhm.
they see horror, and they just see one thing, horror. And then there's
Mhm.
people like us who are horror fans, and we see 5,000 things, like all the
Mhm.
different subgenres or whatever. So there's a lot of people out there that are like, I don't like horror because they immediately think of something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or
Mhm.
Saw or Hostel, like you know, like the
Gruesome.
really extreme stuff, and they're like, I don't like that." And I was like, "Well, there's more to it than that." And they're like, "What?" You know? So, some of the on-ramps for future horror fans, and both, like, adults and children especially, are, like, the horror comedies, like things like The Addams Family,
Mhm.
or The Munsters, or, What We Do in the Shadows. Like, I don't think a lot of people that watch that realize that that's horror comedy, you know? They're
Mhm.
just like, "Oh, it's just a funny story, it's spooky." So I really feel like it's horror for chickens, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it's like people just putting their toe in the pool of horror who maybe otherwise would have been turned off if it was called horror,
Mhm.
because of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre gore thing, which there's nothing wrong with
Mhm.
that if that's your thing, but it's not everybody's thing. So Yeah, I think that horror comedy, particularly, like, it gets dismissed a lot, I think, in the horror community, especially the book community.
Mm.
Um, because it's people in that community are looking for the more serious things most of the time. But in the greater reader community, I think horror comedy is super valuable because it lures in people to the genre who might not otherwise have identified themselves as horror fans or readers until they tried some of this lighter stuff, you know?
Mhm.
And then the other benefit is that, like, I love monsters a lot. Like, and I don't just love horror comedy. I love all kinds of monsters. I love scary stuff. But sometimes people are going through things in their lives where they just want something to make them laugh. Like they love
Mhm.
monsters, but they don't want to, watch a slasher or a body horror because maybe they're like me and they have cancer and they were living the body horror and they just can't do it.
Mhm.
But they want monsters, but they want it to be something to help them release emotionally. So like horror comedy, I think fits that perfectly. So I'm like, there are a lot of times when people are going through real hard horrors in their real life, but
Mhm.
they love monsters and they just want to laugh. So that's where horror comedy comes in. So, on ramp for chickens, people that love monsters and want to laugh, people that don't realize they're reading horror, and would maybe turn away from a bookstore section that said horror on the title,
Mhm.
even though they would like it, if it's called something else. So, that was a very roundabout answer. I apologize.
No, that was a great answer. I mean,
I'm
I've
like,
because
that
I've
probably made no sense because in my head, I'm like, I could go on for hours about this, So,
that made total sense because I haven't seen that meme, but I have definitely had that experience where
hmm
people might say to me, like, in my community or people who, like, know me around town, and they're like, "I wanna support you, Vicky, but I don't do the scary stuff." And I wanna be like, "Horror is not just that kind of scary. There are, a million different kinds."
different flavors. Yeah.
Yes.
And some of the talk in the author community as far as like because we always have to figure out how to like tell readers about our stuff like
Mhm.
and get them to the people that will like them, get the stories to the people. And it's like in the horror comedy community and even in horror community they're like, should we not use the word horror because some people immediately turn away when they hear that
Hmm.
word? Like, should we use word like monster or something else that doesn't have that immediate like to
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of discussion about that, but yeah, a lot of my readers, like, they're like, "This isn't horror comedy, it's humorous fantasy." I was like, "Well, it is right on that line, but
Mhm.
technically it's horror comedy because, it's human characters dealing with the supernatural.
Mhm.
So, they don't even realize they're reading horror until I tell them.
Mm.
And then they're
I
like,
guess at
"Okay, I
some
guess I
point
like it."
Yeah, but I guess at some point the genre doesn't even matter because, like, some of my books, I could say that's psychological thriller, but it's also very much a horror novel. So, or like
Well, thrillers are horror, it's just
yeah.
called something else.
Mhm,
So,
mhm,
for Mark I mean, I'm not saying obviously like call your horror book a thriller if it's not a thriller, but thriller I feel like is part of the horror genre or can be. It's just branded as something else because of the same problems that we have with horror comedy and monsters and words.
mhm.
So,
I
yeah.
think part of the reason is because horror is so broad. So
Mhm.
people are just looking for different ways to
Oh
say
yeah.
horror without saying horror because people
Yeah.
have this idea in their minds. It's one thing. It's one thing.
Yeah, but it is not one thing. It's like
Mhm,
5,000 things, subgenre, subgenre, subgenre. So,
mhm.
yeah, but
I've also read some romance books that have so much horror in them, but
horror
everybody
romance
is
is a
like,
thing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that
like a new
also.
hot thing. Yeah.
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 So you can just
My
keep going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, my friend Sarah Hans, we've shared a lot of tables at events this year, and she writes scary monsters, and then she has a sign that says scary monsters and sexy monsters, pointing with arrows, because she does, like, traditional, like, slow burn kinda, like, horror, and then she also does, like, sexy monsters and horror romance, and I'm like, "I have learned
Cool.
so much standing
Mhm.
next to her, like, listening to her talk to readers and stuff." I was like, "What?" Like, it's a
That's
whole other, ball of worms right over there, so, in the horror romance and monster romance, I'll say, but it's not.
awesome.
It's a whole thing. So yeah.
Well, thinking about, talking directly to your readers. So you run a very awesome monthly newsletter that I've signed up for, Monsters in Your Inbox. I look forward to it every month. So why did you develop this newsletter and how do you go about like kind of picking content for it every month?
Um, the fact that you say that you look forward to it every month is the magic. So that means a lot to me. In the traditional, well, in the self-publishing and indie community for years and years, there's been a focus on you need a newsletter because when people read your book, you need to be able to have a way to keep in touch with them so that when you have
Mhm.
another book, you can tell them about it. So, um, yeah, and of course, you can't rely on social media because you don't have their email addresses. Like, you're dependent on the algorithm, like
Mhm.
showing your posts, which of course is getting harder and harder and harder. But that's a whole other discussion. And of course, Amazon, if they buy your books there, like they don't tell you who your customers are. Like, there's no way to
Mhm.
contact them. So, a good author newsletter is considered like basically career gold because that's the only way you have to directly contact your readers
Mhm.
and know who they are and talk to them. So when I first started a newsletter, I was like, oh my God, this is torture. Like, I was not having any fun. I was doing it because I felt like I had to. And it was like, I'm like, I'm not having fun writing this. Like, people could possibly, I had terrible open rates, a lot of unsubscribes. Like, clearly people were not enjoying getting it either. And then I always felt like I'm bothering people. So I would send it like once every 6 months, and by then they'd forget who you are and blah, 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 blah. So it was a
Mhm.
whole thing. And I was like, one year I was like, what am I doing? Like, if I'm not having a career that's like that I enjoy, like, what am I even doing this for? I might as well just go get another office job or whatever. So I was like, I'm just going to redesign this and into something that I would look forward to getting or um and see how it goes. So one December I just like ripped up my old newsletter and I designed monsters in your inbox and I was like I want it to look good, very graphic and fun. And then I was like I'm only going to recommend books and movies and things that I am interested in because when you're a slow writer like me, like I'm not a book a month person because
Mhm.
pantsing off into space, but I'm a slower writer and I'm like, well, I also want to be authentic with my readers. So I'm like, what is authentic about me that I can share like with people? And I was like, the answer is my fandom with horror comedy because the only way you can sign up for my newsletter is if you go to my website or if you in a link after you've read one of my books. So if you're there, I know that you know something about me. You didn't just
Mhm.
find me on some group promotion and you're a stranger. Like if you're there, I know things about you. I know that you like the kind of books that I write, which are silly and monsters and whatever. So you're probably going to like the kind of books and movies that I read and listen and watch, so I'll just share those with you. And that's a way for you to get to know me and for you to get book recommendations and stuff. Since so you have things to read and watch while you're waiting for me to put out another book. So that's how it started. So yeah, that's how it works. And it's actually worked out really well. Like if I'm like late, I get emails like, I didn't get it. Did I miss it? Is it in my spam? Like, and I'm like, oh my God, like I must be doing something right if people are looking forward to my email, every month. So
Ah.
it means the world to me. And people know if it's in there, it's something that I liked. It's not like,
Mhm.
nobody could weasel a spot, there's nothing sketchy going on. So um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just got like a quick, like maybe I hate talking about myself. So it's got like maybe like 100 words at the top about here's what's going on with me. And then it's let's get to the fun stuff. And then there's a book and there's a movie. And then there's like weird news stories because there's so many weird news stories.
Mhm.
And maybe that like just speaks to the journalist in me that I'm like always looking at weird news anyway. So yeah, and that's pretty much what it is. It's been going for a while now. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I love it. I mean, I was very inspired by it because I have kind of a fledgling newsletter, and I went through the same thing where I was thinking, okay, people who know me personally might find this interesting, but if I want to appeal to a wider audience, I want to put something in there that's going to give them some value more than just, this is what I did today. So
Mhm.
I was looking at yours and I was like, this is so awesome. And so I redesigned mine to have some more elements that really speak to me in that same way. So thank you for that because I was
That
looking at it, I was
means a
like,
lot
this
to
is
me.
awesome. I want mine to be this awesome.
I mean, ultimately, I want it to be something people look forward to getting every month and that adds something to their
Mhm,
lives. It's like,
mhm,
and we're writers, so we know that our people are readers. So, it just seemed like a natural fit. So, but
for
there's a
sure.
lot of good author newsletters out there. So there's infinite ways to do it. Like Jeff Strand has one that's totally different than mine. It's like I swear it's like 3,000 words. I'm like he has to spend like a week writing it, but it's very much him and his personality. And Tim Wagner has one that's really good. That's also like 5,000 words. That's very much him,
Mhm,
and his vibe. So I feel like you have to be yourself in in your genre and in your fandom and be authentic in that space and then figure out what that thing is going to look
mhm,
like that you're going to send to your readers. So,
mhm.
you know.
It's not easy, it's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, and just figuring out yourself and what your
Mhm,
vibe is, as far as fiction and. what kind of stories you tell, and like making sure all of that those pieces like fit together, you know?
Mhm.
Because if I
Yeah.
sent something dark and like brooding and whatever, people be like, "What?" Like she writes about talking roaches who love heavy metal music, and why is she sending me this like slasher? You know, so it has to make sense, you know.
Mm.
So
Well, I wanna know, what is the funniest horror book you've ever read? Or if you can't think of ever, just, like, maybe one that you read recently that you really liked.
I have a list of some of my favorite horror comedy or monster comedy, whatever you want to call them, books. So I made a list because I knew you were going to ask me that.
Oh my gosh, so
So,
prepared.
all right. So one of my favorites that's really good for summer is Suckerville by Chris Sorensen.
Okay.
It's a creature feature um, about these like mutant, like what are they called? Like mutant, like leeches. Um,
Okay.
and these two hillbillies who pretty much have to save a bar full of people from these mutant leeches. And I mean, as chef's kiss, I love it. I love
Awesome.
it.
Writing it down.
And then I like Apocalypse Cow by Michael Logan, and it's kind of like a zombie cow thing. And I think it won like a literary prize in England, like something Terry Pratchett related, but I don't remember. And I was
Cool.
like, I mean, zombie cows, I'm in. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's a series called How to Be Dead by Dave Turner, and it's about a guy who's basically becomes a Grim Reaper, kind of like Dead Like Me vibe, but
Cool.
funny. Um, and then I could go on. You want me to stop? There's
Give
a
me
book
one
that's
more.
not technically a horror comedy, but I just thought it was hilarious and so well written. It's called Death Rat by Mike Nelson.
Death Rat.
Um, and it's about writers like behaving badly and like it just, yeah. But I feel like it's horror comedy adjacent.
Mm.
Um, and then my friend Scott wrote a book called Wisconsin Vamp that was so funny. It's about a fry cook in Wisconsin who gets bit by a mosquito that's infected with a vampire thing, and he becomes a vampire, and he has to learn how to be a vampire and a fry cook and win the love of the waitress of his dreams. And I liked it so much that I was like, who is this Scott guy? And I went online and I tried to like internet stalk him into being my friend, but he had like no social media presence. And then one day, like after like 3 years, he just popped up one day on Twitter, and I was like, be my friend. And now he's my bestie. So that worked. Internet stalking into friends. I'm totally
Mhm.
guilty. So I really like that book. And then there's kind of like a fantasy that's like right over the line of horror comedy. It's called Death, the Devil, and the Goldfish by Andrew
Mm.
Buckley. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's just really funny. And the goldfish, it's just all very cleverly constructed. So I laughed at that one. And then I was also like, huh, kind of reminded me of like old, like Tim Robbins kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah. So it was just different. And I appreciated that. So that was my list. But yeah,
Well, that's a great, I wrote everything down because I feel like so often, especially when you're going on Book Talk or Bookstagram or anything, you see the same books recommended over and over, which
you
is
do.
fine. But once you've read all of those, like, I want deeper cuts. I want something different. I want something unique. So
Yeah, I
I'm
try
adding
to
those
find the deep cuts. Like you should see my Kindle. It's an absolute mess of like samples and whatever, like anything that looks like vaguely like whatever, like zombie Bigfoot. Yeah, sample,
to.
So, yeah. There's not very many of us that are writing official horror comedy, so, um, I think I know all, like, 3 people that are doing it, but, yeah, so we have to look really hard for those books, so but yeah.
Well, what about movies? What's your favorite B horror movie? I know what mine is. I want to know what yours is.
There isn't just one.
If
There's
you had
infinite.
to pick. Okay, what about like two or three?
Hmm, well, my 2 all-time favorites are Evil Dead 2 and Return of the Living Dead. Those
Both good ones.
movies are movies that I've watched probably, like, more than 1,000 times, so
Both good.
those are probably up there.
I
But, I
love Evil
mean,
Dead.
like, when I was in college, I lived in Chicago in some terrible neighborhood that had, like, a video store on the corner, and it was, like, one of those broke video stores that only had, like, really bad, like, VHS horror, so I'd just go grab whatever was the next one on the list, like, in the line on Friday night and, like, watch them all. It was, like, 5 for, like, a dollar or whatever. I'd get them all, so VHS horror, that was all, like, Brain Dead or Tombs from the Blind Dead and, like, vampire hookers and,
Mm.
like, so I'm like, I love all of it. It's like the worse it is, like the more I love it because I'm like, these people were out there trying to make something, like respect. Like I respect you if you try to make a bad movie because you at least made something, right? So
Mhm. No, I'm the same way. That's why people will not watch movies with me. 'Cause I tell my
Really?
husband, like, "I only like bad movies," and he's like, "Well, this got, like, a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, we're not watching it." I'm like, "Fine, I'll go do it myself."
Well, that's like says instant watch. Like if you're like, if everybody else hated it, it's probably awesome. I'd say the other one that's probably I've watched a lot is Dead Alive, which I think
I
was
don't think
called
I've
Brain
seen
Dead. It's the Peter Jackson movie, the zombie one with the Sumatran rat monkey that bites the
heard of
lady,
it,
and then
yeah.
there's the scene with the pudding and the lawnmower. But yeah, so those are my favorite. And I actually really love Elvira's Mistress of the Dark.
I
I don't know
love that
why.
movie.
I
I love
laugh
that
so
movie.
hard. She's just a comedy genius. Like, love
I've
you,
seen it
Elvira.
multiple times. It is a
Oh
great
yeah, like yeah, totally. So
Mhm.
yeah.
My favorite would be The Stuff from 1985.
Oh, I love this stuff. I love it. I
That is
love
I
it.
actually wrote a paper on it in college because we had a whole class where we watched horror through the decades and analyzed why things were scary at that time, and we
Really?
watched The Stuff, and I was just like, "Yes, this is the
Okay,
best."
well,
I
give me
my
your
dream.
analysis of the stuff. Like, why do you think it was scary at the time? The kid actor, kind of terrible, but the guy who played like the sweet talking Southern like
He
detective,
was
who
hilarious.
was real smarmy because he actually was like corporate espionage, but he was so charming. Oh, I mean, he carried that whole thing, you know?
I mean, it was like a whole critique of consumer culture in the '80s. I mean, that
Okay,
was had
okay.
everything in it that you could want, and it was ridiculous, and the practical effects were awesome, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't imagine who would wanna eat marshmallow fluff coming out of the earth. Like, everything about it was just so ridiculous. And the jingle, I loved the jingle. "Enough is never
Can't
enough."
get enough of the
Yeah.
stuff. Is that what it is?
Yes. So good, so
Uh,
good.
we should do like a Halloween like costume or whatever. Next time we're at a place where we have like something we need to dress up, where we dress up as the models that like wear the swimsuits with the
Oh my
fluff coats
gosh.
holding the stuff.
Yes.
Girl, next level.
I would love to do
We're
that. I
making a
mean,
plan.
yeah. I would love to do that. I feel
Whoever
like
like laughs, there are people. It'll be like a
I
social
know.
filtering thing. I'm like, these are our people if they get the joke. You know
Yeah,
what I
because that
mean?
is a deep cut. Most people be like, "What is that?"
It's the
It's that
commercial for the stuff.
I know. It's like a friend test. It's like, if you get this, make friends.
We all need friend tests. No, I'm kidding.
Mhm.
But yeah, yeah. So.
Well, what is next on the horizon for you? Can you give us, like, a little bit of a hint about what you've got cooking next?
Oh, you mean like work in progress or like grand
Work in
scheme, like
progress,
philosophical?
well, all of the
Um,
things, and, like, I know I read your newsletter that you were just at Columbus Book Fair, you're taking a break, but, like, where are you gonna be next?
um, well, I mean, so the first thing is all my fans are mad at me because I took a break from writing Demon Mart 7 to write a stupid Christmas creature feature that I just couldn't get out of my head. And in my defense, I only thought it was going to take a month because I thought it was going to be a short story, but I also should know myself better now and know that I actually can't write a short story.
Mhm.
Everything I write turns into a novel. So here we are a year later. My 1 month thing has turned into a novel, but it's called Christmas Creeps from the Deep, and it's like a trailer park Hallmark romance meets humanoids from the deep. So
Cool.
that's coming out this Christmas. And then it will be back to work on Demon Mart 7 and 8, and then The Tale of Kevin to wrap up the series. So those are the next things in line, um, writing wise. And then I am taking a break from in person events just because I did something called the Year of Yes, because I have a lot of anxiety about doing like in person things and like standing. And my friend John Hartness, who runs Falstaff Books, was like, "You need to get out there. You need to make writer friends. You need to do these events. You have to learn what it's like." And I was like, "Ugh, fine." So I decided in 2024, I was like, "This is the year of yes, and I'm going to say yes to everything that comes along." So I did, and I'm like, that started in January 2024, and it is what now, July 2025, and I finally finished the last thing I said yes to. So I did like 20 events in like 20 months,
Oh my
and I am very thankful for a lot of things. Like I met a lot of wonderful writers and readers like you, and
mhm,
your amazing mom. Love her. Love you, mom. So made a lot of writer pals, which I think is important because this is a very
mhm,
lonely job otherwise. Otherwise, we're just sitting alone typing, and that's no way to live. I mean,
mhm,
I love that, but we need community. So
mhm.
that was good, but it was also just like very exhausting. Like,
Yeah.
like traveling and like carrying books with you because they're all dead trees and they're all heavy, and so there's a lot of things. So I'm really looking forward to just staying home again and writing. um
Mhm.
so I think I lost the thread of the question. So yeah, I'm staying home. That's my plan. My plan is to stay home and write all these stupid books that I really am behind on because I was out, you know going to cocktail parties
Mhm.
and standing behind a table, like talking to people about books. So I'm behind because of the events. So now that they're over, I'm going to like kick my butt into gear and I'm going to write. And then I'm also thinking, like, I've always wanted to work like in all the Halloween jobs. So I'm thinking I really want to work at Spirit Halloween for a year. I really want to work at a
Cool.
haunted house for a year. Like I want to do all the Halloween jobs. So I'm like, maybe this fall I might get a Halloween job, but it depends on how the writing's going because that has to come first. So,
Mm,
but yeah. So crazy
cool.
stuff, right? Yeah. Anyway.
I'm sad I won't see you at AuthorCon next year.
Well, I mean, I could change my mind, but I don't know. I don't know. So the next thing I have scheduled is StokerCon 2026 in Pittsburgh. It's only like 2.5 hours away, and I was
Mhm.
peer pressured into going. So, um, and last time they had it in Pittsburgh, they had like a field trip to the Pit Archives where they have the horror archives.
Cool.
And I was really bummed that I missed the field trip to the archives. So I'm like, I really kind of want to do that for my nerd brain. So I'm like, I kind of
Mm.
want to go back just so I can go to the Pit Archives. So, and there's also this awesome place in Pittsburgh called Trundle Manor, and it's this couple that owns like a historic home, and they have a lot of weird stuff and collections that they've
Ooh.
acquired, and you have to call them and make an appointment to go like on a little tour of their like weird mansion full of stuff. So I'm like, kind of want to do that. So yeah, so fun
I
Halloween
love
things.
weird stuff.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you come to StokerCon next year, then
I
I'll take
am
you to Trundle Manor with me.
okay. If I make it
And we're
there,
going on a field
please.
trip. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think there's a
I'm just
horror
getting
bar there too called Jekyll and Hyde's or something. So we can do that.
so
So
cool. I mean, I'm just getting into the horror events. Like I have 2 kids under the age of 4, so it's kind of like,
girl.
can I get
Mm-hmm.
childcare?
Mm-hmm.
That's like my main concern. Otherwise, I would go to everything. But if
Yep.
I'm there, we will go to Trundle Manor.
Yep. Yep. Totally. It's a date. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was awesome.
well, thank you for having me. So
And
and
remind everybody where they can keep up with you and find your work.
the best place is probably just my website, dmgay.com, which I'm gonna be difficult and I have to spell it out for you because French, dmguay.com. So yeah,
Right on.
that's the
Awesome.
central hub of everything. But yeah.
And go sign up for Monsters in Your Inbox because it
Oh,
is super fun.
yeah, well, no pressure. What if my next one isn't fun?
I
No,
will
okay.
pressure. I will pressure.
Okay.
It is
You
worth it.
pressured me. You
Everybody
just
go do
pressured
it.
me. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much.